All right, welcome back, man. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy workday and whatever the boss has got you into today. Hopefully, he's kind to you. I've had a few foremans and bosses over the years that, definitely were not kind. They were not nice people. And it just sucks to go to work when you're working with bosses or foremans that are just, like crappy guys. So I hope that's not you. If it is you, well, you're powerful, right? Hopefully your situation is such that you can maybe make some changes and do something about it. But today we're going to be talking about consequences. Nobody loves to hear that word. I mean, I certainly don't. Most of us, I'm exhibit A on this. When somebody says your consequence is, I don't want to accept that. That is a what's the word I'm looking for there? A for sure sign that I screwed up somewhere, and I hate screwing up. It just irritates the crap out of me. But let me set it up for you like this. So last week I was done with work, and the temperatures are starting to get kind of hot, and it was a hot day, and I was kind of stressed out. I don't know, maybe something didn't quite go right. Maybe I was just having an off day, right? I'm not above, bad choices on good days. I'm not above having a rough day, and I was jonesing for some cookies. And one of my weaknesses right now is a pack of Chips Ahoy chocolate chip cookie. Chips Ahoy chocolate chip cookie. If my mom doesn't make chocolate, if I can learn to speak, this episode might go smoother. If my mom doesn't make chocolate chip cookies, then I have to go for Chips Ahoy, because they're like my second favorite, from what my mom's make. And so I went to get a packet of these cookies, and all they had was like the big pack, and I'm talking like, the row of like 4 or 5, like logs of chocolate chip cookies in this thing. And so like the convenience store is maybe 4 miles from my house, and there may or may not have been 80% of that pack eaten by the time I got home. What can I say? So, and I knew my wife would like some and my son would like some. So I'm like, I won't eat all of them because, they would probably want a couple. Not very generous of me, I know. But so I get home and I put 3 of them in my hand, and I kind of close my hand with these cookies in my fist. And I walk up to my boy, and he's there in the barn, and we're hanging out like we do every day when I go home from work. And I hold up my fist to him that has these cookies in them. And he like starts looking. He's like, "What you got there?" And I'm like, "I don't know. Check it out." And it's like, "Hold out your hand." And he was like, "No," right? I'm not holding out my hand. I'm like, "No, these are for you. Hold out your hand." And he was like looking down, trying to look around my hand, get down real low, looking up underneath my hand. And I said, "What? Don't you trust me?" "No, I don't trust you," is what he said. And I kind of was like, "What do you mean by that?" He was like, "That's your fault. I don't trust you. You caused that. That's on you, man." My wife sitting there, and she just started chuckling because, like, she gave me this shrug, and she's like, "I mean, he's right." So in that moment, I could have responded in a couple of different ways. I could have just blown it off like, it ain't no big deal. But I chose to just kind of receive that honest feedback, because what that was is a natural consequence from actions that I have taken with my son years and years ago when he was much smaller, when he trusted completely. And I said, "Bo, hold out your hand. I got something for you." And I was holding a frog, my little frog I caught, and he's 4 years old. And he holds out his hand, and I drop a frog in his hand, and it freaks him out, and he screams, right? So hopefully you haven't done anything like that to your kids. If you did, I'm telling you, there's hope for you. I can promise you there's hope for you. We can make some decisions moving forward. But, back to the cookie incident. Well, that's you. You caused this. That's on you. Natural consequence. Broken trust. Too many pranks that freaked him out. He learned, if Daddy comes up to me and he's holding his hand closed and said, "Here, open your hand," there's been times in the past that what has been in his hand is not pleasant. It's something that's not good. It's not a cookie. It's something gross, maybe. So a logical consequence to that This is kind of the differences that we're going to talk about. Natural and logical consequences. Natural consequences are things that are like inherent. They're like part of reality. They are the natural result of an action. So in this case, my son's natural consequence was broken trust to me, holding something in my hand that was uncomfortable to him. Okay? A logical consequence is something that somebody chooses to do in addition to the natural consequence to, further back up or carry weight or further reinforce the severity of the situation. So like in this example, I could choose to have a logical consequence to say, well then moving forward, I will always show my hand before asking him to open his, right? So that is a logical consequence of me choosing to interact with him in ways that have broken trust in the past, right? So I can choose to do that on myself. Likewise, my son can choose a logical consequence of, Dad, if you ask me to hold my hand out because you want to give me something, I won't do that until you show me what's in your hand, right? So that could be a logical consequence in this situation. I love this quote. So Little House on the Prairie, if you haven't read the book series, it's an amazing book series. I encourage you to check it out, especially if you're a dad and you've got some little kids, all little kids, man, they love to be read to. And if you just take that time to just start working through the series and just learn about the stories, is just it's awesome. There's like some really good practical wisdom in there and just a snapshot into how people lived back in the 1800s. But anyway, in one of the books, Ma Ingalls, she had this quote, and when I read it as we were working through this, I just paused right there. I just stopped. I just had to like absorb this thing, and I dog-eared the page real quick and took note of it. But she said, a body creates its own luck. Be it good or bad, I'm sure you'll get exactly what you deserve. And when I read that, it just hit, man. It's like a body, meaning a person, meaning me, right? Meaning you. We create our own luck, whether it's good or bad. A consequence isn't always negative. Sometimes consequences are good. Be it good or bad, I'm sure you're going to get exactly what you deserve. Let's just think about that. Your actions shape outcomes. Does that make sense? Proverbs 11:18 kind of backs this up. Proverbs says, the one who sows righteousness reaps a sure reward, right? It says another place somewhere in the Bible, I don't know where, something like we sow to the carnal nature, from that nature reap destruction, right? So that's kind of the other end of this coin. You do good stuff, your consequence is good stuff. You do bad stuff, you put a frog in your son's hand instead of cookies in your son's hand. The result of that is maybe he's not going to trust what you're at. So, long story short, where does that leave us today? Let's really clarify this more. The natural consequences are the inherent outcomes of your actions. They're occurring without any external intervention, not any external reinforcement. If you deceive your wife, she may withdraw emotionally. She may break trust. Trust will be broken. If you neglect your work, you may miss opportunities. Right? They're not like punishments. They're just the natural result of actions that you're taking. Right? Some logical consequences. Examples could be like they're intentional responses that people choose by others. They're like boundaries, in other words, to protect, or reward or affirm. In the example, if you lie to your spouse, right? The natural consequence is broken trust. She may withdraw emotionally. The logical consequence she may say, you need to sleep on the couch. The severity of that broken trust, she may say, you need to sleep somewhere else. Get a hotel room. Go away. I can't be in the same house with you right now. That could be a logical consequence. Your supervisor might give you a warning that says, hey, man, you need to get your head on straight. You're slacking off in the job, whatever it is. Like, you're making too many mistakes, too many accidents. You're forgetting too much stuff. And you might need to be watched. That was a line that I heard early on in my masonry career. I was in my mid-20s, and I thought I was the man when it come to laying brick and laying block. I thought I knew it all. I thought I was the fastest. I thought I was the best. And I was on this crew of guys, and we're laying brick on I think it might have been like a TJ Maxx warehouse or something like that, a store. And we're laying brick, and we're up on the scaffold, and we're going to town with it and everything. And I was using my level, and I was like building this, this column, this pier, and I thought we're doing great. Yeah, man, it's out a little bit. That's no big deal. And we're just laying this thing up, and we get to the top, and it's like it didn't measure. It's supposed to be, I don't remember now, but let's just say it was supposed to be 32 inches wide, and we get to the top, and it's like 36 and a half inches wide, right? Which totally messes up. Who, like the roofers and whoever was going to do like the cap of this column, like it messes up their plan severely. Well, man, you couldn't tell me different. I thought it was fine back then. And so as the job progressed, we moved off of these columns, and now we're just laying brick on the wall here. And one of the seasoned masons hopped up on the wall next to me, and he just started laying brick next to me. If you've ever seen masons working on scaffolding, they're shoulder to shoulder. Like, we stretch out, we give ourselves space, but like, you're right there working with the guys. And the foreman said to the seasoned guy, hey, watch him. And when I heard those words, hey, watch him, and it was like somebody punched me in the gut, right? Because like, what? In my own brokenness and addiction at the time, like I couldn't receive those words as good, honest feedback. I received those words as like an insult, like an attack against my ability or even my character and who I was. I had such a hard time receiving that, and I was offended, and I was angry, and I was pissed off. But that is a logical consequence of poor performance, right? The supervisor says to an accomplished mason, hey, watch him, because he's careless, he's forgetful, he's not thorough in his work. Watch him. Logical consequences. Deliberate guidance. They reinforce positive behavior, or they help make it really uncomfortable if you're not going the right way, right? Let's look at it this way. Let's go from the aspect of like, from the spectrum of my son has got his hand out, and am I holding a frog or am I holding a cookie, right? Let's go the other end of that thing. Consider a husband who betrays his wife. You sleep around. You watch porn, she finds out. You go through discovery, all right? Let's consider the far end of this thing. You've betrayed your wife through infidelity and deceit, through lying. The natural consequence of that is a break of trust that is the most extreme break of trust that is possible in a relationship. The sense of safety of the marriage has been completely eroded and destabilized. Her sense of security is now gone. She has none. Just like that. This trauma that has now occurred in the marriage, in her, it's called betrayal trauma, is not something imposed on the outside. This naturally occurs in an instant where there is lying and infidelity together. She may choose, right? Well, let's back up. What happens to the relationship and what happens to her in that moment is not a choice on her part. It is a natural byproduct of the infidelity. She may follow up the logical consequences with divorce, sleeping in another room, getting into some accountability, getting into some therapy, requiring you to get into some therapy, some accountability, some groups, requiring passcodes on your phone. There could be just like a long list of logical consequences that come out from infidelity and lying. You may have to get a new job. You may have to move. Like, the list goes. Psychiatrist Tim Jennings, he puts it this way: you can never avoid the truth. You can only delay the day you have to deal with it. Let that sink in for a second. A lot of us, I know I did for years and years, no one will ever find out about that. But then when it comes out, and now it's known, there's a whole bunch of consequences that, I don't want to deal with, or that I have to deal with, or that I was just trying to avoid to begin with. Galatians 6, 7, and 8 backs this whole concept up. A man reaps what he sows, right? It may not happen today, but it may happen in the future at some point, right? And so we've been talking on the negative side of these consequences for quite some time now, the natural, logical stuff. But let's look at the positive side. Let's flip this coin over and let's consider what happens though with positive consequences, right? So let's just say positive consequences, they yield positive outcomes. So let's just say if you're being open with your buddy, you're being open and transparent with your guy, what's the consequence of that, right? It's increased trust. The natural consequence of being open and transparent is increased trust. A logical consequence to that could be your buddy calls you up and gives you a serious attaboy, pat on the back, and tells you how much he appreciates you and loves you because you helped him do something, or just because you're funny, maybe it's just the way you crack jokes, and he loves it, and he just decides to tell you one day how much I love your sense of humor. That this kind of stuff fosters stronger relationships and natural consequences. So Hosea 10:12 captures this whole idea even more. Sow righteousness for yourselves, reap the fruit of unfailing love. Man, let that set in. So righteousness, right? So do what's right. Do what's right. Do the good thing. And reap the fruit of unfailing love. That's a natural consequence of doing what's right, doing the right thing. Sowing integrity cultivates love. A tangible reward in your relationship, man. We all want love. I know I do. Man, doesn't it feel good to be loved? It's a path forward for you. Do the right thing, sow righteousness, and reap unfailing love, the natural consequence of that. All right, so how do we do this? Well, let's look into some practical steps to recognize and accept these consequences. This is what you can work out in your journal this week. This is what I kind of challenge you to do this week, to not avoid this really uncomfortable thing. Actually, don't look at a consequence as something that is being done to you. Okay, look at it like something that is being done for you. And that is where growth takes place. That is where growth can really happen. So what we could do is confront the truth. It's time to get real, man. Examine your relationship. Examine your heart. Examine what are the actions and behaviors that I'm taking now, and what are the consequences of them. And sometimes it's hard to figure it out. Is your spouse distant? Right? Is she cold? Is she avoiding you a little bit? Does she spend a lot of time on her phone instead of talking to you? Do you spend a lot of time on your phone instead of talking to her? That could be a consequence of your actions right there. Maybe you're into something that you shouldn't be into, and you're spending all your time on your phone to avoid talking about it. How about your kid? Is he defiant? Is she defiant? Are they acting out per se? Right? Is your friend pulled away? Have you not talked to him for quite some time? Maybe ask yourself this. Get out your journal. What's my contribution? Right? So I have an awareness tool. It's called Pulse. It's just to help you kind of analyze your day and what's going on. And one of the prompts in that journal is unions, right? So our relationships. It's to kind of analyze your relationships. So unions. What is the reality of the significant relationships in my life? And then what is my contribution to that reality? So perhaps you've been dishonest, right? Perhaps you had perhaps too many times, metaphorically speaking, you had a frog in your hand and pranked somebody, right? Instead of having a cookie in your hand and blessed somebody, right? Maybe there's too many times of that. So my son's distrust of me stems from my past pranks, my past actions. The husband's betrayal of his wife caused her to withdraw. So acknowledge the role honestly. Like, be honest about this. This is why my son doesn't trust me here. This is why my wife is distant. Because I am doing this. I have chosen to say these words. Okay? Identify the consequence. Determine whether it's natural. Okay? If it's organic, is it just happening? Or if it's logical, is it a deliberate response that these people are setting up a boundary, whether it's, a reward for good behavior, or whether it's, a boundary against something unhealthy that you're into. If she withdraws after a lie, then you get mad at her for withdrawing. What does that reveal? I mean, that just reveals that you can't accept the reality of your own actions. And my friend, you got some work to do there, right? If she withdraws after you tell her a lie, you got to own that, man. You got to own that. You need to get honest. You got to deal with that. Accept this stuff. Don't deflect or don't complain. Too many times when the consequence of our actions comes to meet us, to face us, and we don't want to deal with it, there's several tactics that I've used, and a lot of guys who have yet to get into kind of some healing will do these things as well. Deflect, transfer, blame shift, gaslight, avoid, manipulate, and these could all be things like, yeah, well, but you remember what you did last year, right? Right. So you're deflecting, you're blame shifting there, or I didn't lie to you. That's gaslighting, right? Denying someone's reality, or minimizing. It wasn't that bad. It was just one time, and we didn't even, we didn't even touch each other. Right? Gaslighting, minimizing. These are all things that guys that we tend to do when we don't want to truly accept the consequences of our actions. Let's not do that. Let's embrace this. Tyler Childers, kind of a American folk country artist, he has this song, Nose to the Grindstone. He has this line in that song that just, I think, fits this whole idea about consequences splendidly. And it goes like this: keep in mind that a man's just as good as his words. It takes twice as long to build bridges you've burned. And there's a hurt you can cause that time alone cannot heal. And I just think that he captures the essence of a careless man who has the consequence of his actions and behaviors has destroyed a relationship. And it takes a long, 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 long time to rebuild that bridge. Some of those natural consequences could be, let me shoot you straight, bro. You lose the relationship forever. Forever. You never get it back. That could be a natural consequence. And that's a hard one. That, my friend, is a hard one. But you're not perfect. Let me give you some hope. You're not perfect, and neither am I. That's the truth. Neither of us are perfect. We're here. I'm talking. You're listening. You and I are not perfect men. But we can choose differently. We can choose wisely. We can make better decisions. We can do the hard thing and say, I did this. I accept the consequences, and I'm willing to do better. In this relationship with my son, what I'm going to choose to do, what I have chosen to do moving forward, is I still intend to play the game with him. Here, hold out your hand. But what I'm going to do is actually show him what's in my hand first, and then close my hand in a fist and say, hold out your hand, I got something for you. It may sound ridiculous, right? It defeats the purpose of the game, right? Well, no. What it's doing is it's slowly over time rebuilding trust. He gets to see what's in my hand, and now I can show him that, hey, there's nothing bad in this hand. Now, here's where the bar is really, really, really high. When you're in the trust building phase, after you have broken trust, which is a natural consequence of your actions, you can't screw up. It's got to be 100%. It has to be clean. Because if I go through this time of, say, 20 times where I show him my hand and I say, hold your hand out, and I have a cookie in there 20 times, well, the 21st time I don't show him my hand, I just say, hold out your hand. And he holds his hand out without asking what's in it. Well, right there is evidence that trust has been built. The 22nd time, if what's in my hand is not a cookie, or it's something sketchy or something scary, guess what happens, bud? I'm all the way back at square one again. But the problem is, now it's going to take twice as long to rebuild that bridge that I burned, because trust was there, it got broken, trust was rebuilt to a point, and when it got broken a second time, it starts further back. Because now not only does he have to do I have to rebuild the trust, right, for that first part until I broke it. Does this kind of make sense? And I think that's where Tyler Childers gets it. It takes twice as long to build bridges you've burned, and there's a hurt you can cause that time alone can't heal. Some of these relationships where there's been cheating and infidelity and extramarital affairs, the wife can deal with the acting out. We hear this all the time. We hear this all over the place. She can deal with the infidelity, the porn. She can deal with that. What she can't deal with is being lied to. What she can't deal with is not really knowing what's going on, what's the truth. So just let that sink in. The next time you're kind of on the fence about, should I or should I not do something or say something. I want to give you this hope. Accept a consequence. View it as this is being done for me, for my good, for my growth, for my development, for my leadership, for my capacity to love and to pour into the lives of my wife or your girlfriend or your family, your mom, your dad, your brothers and sisters, your children. Consequences is like some of the best feedback you could get, be it good and bad, to tell you where you're going in your life. I really thank you so much for spending your time with me today. This is Hands Like Hide. I'm your host, Charlie Pfeiffer, and reach out to me on Instagram. I'm on Hands Like Hide, and we can talk about this and meet up if you want. Until next time, bye-bye.